Hey there! Today we're going to be making this beautiful Camellia rose paper flower. The supplies you're going to need for this are 50 to 65 pound cardstock, scissors or a cutting machine, a glue gun, a wood dowel for curling the petals, 18 gauge wire if you plan on stemming this flower, and the templates for this tutorial, which are linked below this video and in the corner of this video as well. You will need to cut out the following number of petal layers. You'll need 2 of the 6-point petals and 5 of the 7-point petals. You will also be able to find cutting machine measurements if you should need them below in the description as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this beautiful flower. Alright, so I have all my petals cut out here, and I'm going to set aside the 7-point petals for now. You should have 5 of those. I'm just going to set those aside, and we're going to work with the 6-point slightly larger petals first. And what you want to do with those is you want to just go along each of the petal points and you want to slightly crease them. You don't have to make the crease super deep. Just give it a very slight crease down the center of each one of those petal points. And now I'm going to take my thin wood dowel and I'm going to curl each side of those petals on each side of the crease that I made. So it's going to create kind of like a bloomed petal kind of look to it. I don't really know what the technical term is I'm looking for here. I'm not very good at describing how I do my petals. I just see it in my head. So you'll crease it and then you'll curl back the edges. And it kind of creates a really pretty effect once we build this flower. And once you are done doing that, I want you to also go around and to bend the petals up just a little bit, just like I did there. So do that with both of those petal layers there, the 6-point petal layers. And I'm using a really thin dowel here in order to accomplish this. If any of you are wondering what kind of paper I'm using, I am using 50-pound metallic cardstock that I got on cardsandpockets.com. That is available on my blog post of my supply list that I like to share. That's linked below this video as well if you're interested in knowing exactly which paper I use here. And it's kind of pretty because it gives it sort of a shine to the petals, kind of a frosted shine to the petals there. So we've got those petals done. Now we're going to work on the 7-point petals, and we're just going to take that thin wood dowel and we're just going to curl each one of these petal points. Just curl it around the dowel, nothing fancy here, nothing difficult. Do that with all of these 5 layers here. Now with these 7-point petals as well, you're going to want to do what I like to call the tuck and twist. So tuck all the petals so that they are tucked together the same direction, and then sort of twist the bottom. This is really going to help the petals stay more closed as you build the flower. Obviously the first couple layers here, we're going to open them a little bit more. As we work towards the center, we will leave it twisted a little bit tighter, more closed until it's completely closed in the center like a rosebud would be. So do this with all of those 5 petals, and then for a couple of them you can kind of open them back up just like I did there. Okay, so the next step is going to be to start with those 6-point petals again first, and then you're going to add a little bit of glue to the bottom side of one and place it on top of the other. See how I'm placing it where the petals are alternating with each other. It's not directly stacked. The empty spaces between each one is being filled by the layer below it, so make sure it's alternating like that. Then go ahead and grab one of the 7-point petal layers and add some glue to the back side of one and place it in exactly the same way. Now, there's 7 points for this one, there's 6 below, so it's not going to alternate perfectly because there's an additional petal, but just do your best to make it look like it's alternating with the petals below. It'll be slightly off and that's fine. Then we're going to keep moving on exactly in the same fashion like that. So just grab your next layer. You might want to retuck and give it another little twist there just to make sure everything is going to kind of progressively get tighter to the center as we're building this rose from the outside in. And then when you place this one in, do try and aim to have those petals alternate with the layer of petals below it. Now that you're placing another 7-point petal on top of another 7-point petal layer, you'll be able to alternate with it pretty easily. Just work with the petals here. You might have to kind of fan them out with your fingers like I'm doing here and tuck them in different directions to get it to lay exactly the way you want. Go ahead now and just continue with the next 2 layers the same way. With this second to last petal layer here, make sure that you keep it twisted pretty tightly closed. You want it to be only slightly open, just enough for us to be able to slip in that last center bud there. Now for this very last piece, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to grab 2 of the petal points kind of opposite to each other, just pick any 2, it doesn't matter which 2, and add some dots of glue to each side of the petals and wrap them around each other so they're kind of hugging. That's the best way I know how to describe it, is kind of like they're hugging each other. So each side of the petals will be overlapping the other, and you'll be using dots of glue to ensure that that very most center bud is staying together and it's nice and a nice tight bud in the center there. I'm using my dowel here to sort of make sure that the glue makes good contact in the center there. Okay, so for the rest of this last piece here, we're also going to take a couple more of the petal points opposite to each other, and we're just going to add a little bit more glue to the inner side, each side of one of the petals, and just glue it up around that bud that we created. Try and leave just a little bit of space by pinching it so it's not completely flush to the bud that we created. It'll just look like it's blooming a little bit more. And this is just going to ensure that because we're using glue here with the bud, it's not going to open too much over time. There are other, especially when you're working with this metallic paper, it can sometimes not stay in shape as much as non-metallic paper, just with the type of texture that it is. But if we're using glue here to hold it up rather than just twisting it and trying to keep it straight up like by twisting it alone, then it might open up, but if we're using glue, it's going to stay exactly where we want. So for the last 3 pieces, I don't glue them, I just tuck them up around the bud there. I don't actually glue them, it's just gonna kind of stand up inside of the flower there on its own, and the other petals are gonna hold it up. So I just add a little glue to the bottom of that bud piece we created and slip it into the center there in the remaining space that we've left. You might need to kind of hold it or grab your dowel and stick it in the center bud and make sure that the bottom makes good contact with the rest of the flower. Play around with the petals any way you want to get it just right, and you should have something that resembles this when you get done with it. And I think this is a pretty close, realistic take on what a Camellia rose in nature would look like. Now, if you want to stem this, you can take your 18 gauge wire and some pliers or use your fingers and form a little circle after bending a 90-degree angle at the top of your wire, probably about an inch down, and form just a little circle. And this little circle is just going to give us sort of a base to put the flower on, and then we're going to use this leaf piece here to actually cover up the stem so it looks seamless. And you can just curl this with a wood dowel as well. I just grabbed my Cricut scraper tool there and kind of curled it, but you can use the wood dowel to curl this as well. Thread it through that base greenery piece to where the little circle is kind of sitting right through the hole there on top of the base greenery, and then add some glue around the greenery base and on top of the circle wire and press the flower onto it at the bottom. Make sure here that you're holding until dry, because if you don't, the wire is a little bit heavy weighted, so it will probably fall off. So just keep your grip on the flower there and on the base of the flower until it's dry, and you shouldn't have any problems. So your Camellia rose is now finished. You can stem these, or you can leave them without stems and put them on wreaths or anything else you can imagine. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to grab your templates to make these beautiful flowers, and I will see you guys next time. For more tutorials and freebies, go to abbykirstencollections.com, or you can shop this template on catchingcolorflies.com.